Good afternoon. I'll be opening as city staff the January 25th, 2021 Architectural Board of Review meeting. The first order of business is election of chair. Do I have any nominations?
Yes, I nominate Kevin Moore.
Oh, pardon me, I'm a little bit out of order. We need to do a roll call first. Mary?
Thank you, Christina. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. We have Board Member Moore.
Here.
Board Member Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
Board Member Watkins.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. The first order of business is election of chair. Do I have any nominations for election of chair?
Yes, Ms. McGuire, I nominate Sir Kevin Moore.
Do we have any second by Olson? Any discussion? Okay, I'll call Mary for the roll call
Are you
vote.
sure somebody else does want to take a crack?
I could add a little bit of discussion, Kevin. I think you've done a great job of being the chair, and I appreciate your hard work at it. Thank you. I hope you take this job for another year.
I agree.
I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. And you are willing to participate as chair?
I will if nobody else is ready to jump in there.
All right,
Anyone else?
this is Mary. We'll go ahead and take the roll call vote for that. We have Chair Moore.
Does he abstain from his own vote?
I think he can vote.
Oh, yeah.
We have Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes,
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
All right. I missed the first half of that, so unfortunately,
You're appointed.
assuming it went okay. All right. Have we done vice chair?
No.
no,
All right.
Christina.
Do we have any?
Thank you, Chair Moore. Actually, at this point, the meeting is back to the chair. So we're now asking for nominations for vice chair.
Okay. So we have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate
to-
Richard
Whalen.
Six.
So we had two people going at once there. It sounded like Mr. Olson, you said Mr. Six, Mr. Whalen. Who was
I'll
your
second,
nomination?
I'll
Okay.
second that.
The first is, okay. Any other discussion or nominations?
I would add the same for Richard Six. I appreciate the effort you've taken to lead us, and I am hoping you will take this for another year.
Thank you, and I'm very willing to take on the role.
Okay, great. Then let's take our roll call vote.
All right, so we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Before we go too much further, we should make sure we welcome Ms. Anderson to the board. So welcome.
Absolutely.
Good to have you.
Greetings.
And it's great to have a full house, so to speak.
And a female.
Yes. Full house, kings and queens.
Certainly welcome. Certainly welcome. All right. So we now move on to appointment of consent review representatives. So in the past, we've done it where we've broken up the year based and done sort of 2-month rotation. And unfortunately, Mr. Black, being the lone landscape professional, unfortunately gets called upon too often in this case. So we,
It's fine with me.
so I guess myself and Mr. Whalen, other than today, had been taking care of the consent calendar in January, and I think planned on continuing through February. Is that all right with you, Mr. Whalen?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay. So I think we can continue on, and thank you, Mr. Olson, for stepping in there today. I think we can continue on with that. And then Mr. Black, if you're available on call, so to speak, for any items that are specific for landscape, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, that's fine. So, Mr. Chair, question. So if I read the agenda description and there was no reference to landscape, then but I assume that I wouldn't be doing it that day. Is that correct? Just for my benefit?
I think so. I think it would be a good idea though for the other board members that are going to be involved with the review to just take a quick look and maybe let the staff know if they're concerned about the landscape and they want some input.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got January and February figured out. Are there 2 board members that would like to take March and April?
I'd take March and April.
Mr. Olson and Mr. Six, great.
I think David
All right.
raised his hand. I think David raised his hand first, Mr. Moore.
Okay, I can't see David on my screen, so we need one more spot up on top. So who, Mr. Six, you're willing to acquiesce?
I thought the next cycle was Mr. Olson and Mr. Watkins. Is that correct, David?
I have no problem helping with one of those months. Whichever one works best.
Well, it would be 2 months. So
Yeah.
March and April.
Sure.
Okay, so we have Mr. Olson and Mr. Watkins for March and April. Now we have May and June.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Six. And Ms. Anderson. Excellent.
I can do it, yeah.
Okay, so May and June, Six and Anderson. Okay. Then July and August. we gone around to everybody already?
think so.
I do know that I'm going to be gone for part of August. But to keep it simple, would it be okay with everybody just to continue that rotation?
Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
Mr. Moore.
Okay. So we'll just, is that appropriate, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So if staff could make a note of that, that we'll just be continuing that rotation through the year.
Thank you, Chair Moore. We'll send a schedule around via email.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and then it looks like we're on to the other committees. Sign committee alternate member. I'm not sure how often this requires attention, but we need a somebody to step in there.
Chair Moore, if I may interrupt for just a second, that particular position is, it's not the same as the one that you'll see at the bottom of this list, which is the sign ordinance review committee. So this alternate is basically when the sign committee actually needs a third member. Right now, the Michael Drury from the HLC is doing it, but there'll be a time when maybe we'll call on someone on the ABR to do it. It doesn't happen very often, things like it.
I'll do it.
Okay, we have Mr. Black. Step in there. And do we need an alternative or an alternate for that? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Okay, great. All right, then the other subcommittees, Highway 101, we had 6 in black from last year. Is that,
That's,
I'm very willing to continue.
yeah, me as well.
And Chair Moore, I think it's very important that we have maybe even a couple alternates because it's very underrepresented by the city as to the Caltrans and engineers.
okay? Do we have any volunteers to be an alternate?
Which
Mr.
one are we
Whalen?
talking about?
Excellent.
Which one? Which one? are
Highway
you talking
101.
about?
The Highway 101 subcommittee. Okay, Mr. Olson and Mr. Whalen as alternates. Okay, Visual Arts and Public Places Advisory Committee. We had Mr. Olson last year.
I'll continue.
Okay, great. Anybody interested in being an alternate for that?
I could be an alternate.
Okay, Mr. Black, thank you. Design Awards. So last year, I believe Mr. Vice Chair 6, Mr. Watkins, and I think I was on that as well. I think we got it most of the way there. Isn't that right? Vice Chair 6,
That's-
there's just some details
that-
to work out.
That's correct. I think we've dropped the ball, or the Mr. Mahan was carrying the ball for the most part and haven't heard. So I think we need to keep the same folks there.
Okay.
And I would
Mr.
be willing on my part to continue.
Yeah, same.
Great. And I can be an alternate for that since I was involved as well.
Okay.
Okay, the Residential Multi-Unit Objective Design Standards Subcommittee. It really rolls off the tongue. Is this still moving forwards? It's a question for staff. Is this complete?
Chair Moore, I'm sorry, actually, this is one of the ones I hadn't followed up on. I believe that it is going through the process, so I think we do need some representation here.
Okay. Well, I was on it, so I'm happy to continue that. And I think we had 2 members on it, did we not?
Yeah, I thought I was an alternate chair more.
Okay.
I mean, I was an alternate on one of those 2 groups.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm happy to continue, Mr. Watkins. If you want to be an alternate, that's fine. with me.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So Watkins as an alternate. And then the FAR working group is still ongoing, so I think we should continue with that. Are you in agreement, Vice Chair Six?
Yes, Chair Moore, I'm very willing and deep into it.
Okay, so let's stick with those 2, and then I guess we could have an alternate as well, if somebody's willing to be involved. Oh, okay. Then
If
we'll
I'm
stick
not-
with
if
that.
no one else
All right,
is, I would-
ad hoc. Okay, so Watkins is alternate for the FAR group. Ad hoc subcommittees, Highway 101 roundabout. Mr. Black and Vice Chair Six as an alternate.
Very willing to continue.
Yeah, me too.
And let's stick with that. Sign ordinance review. Not exactly sure what the status of that is. Is it continuing?
Thank you, Chair Moore.
Staff
That
know?
we do know a little about this one. There's no expected work on this ad hoc subcommittee. We just left it in here in case it became a work effort for the city staff.
Okay,
So you could move mine over into the main category there, since
Okay.
he wants, if
Great.
that works.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Olson. All right, and then architectural details have been postponed. And then if we could scroll down a little, is there anything left? No. So that is it. Is that correct? All right. So did we capture everything that we needed to there?
Thank you, Chair Moore and board members. You did a great job appointing people to all of these committees and subcommittees. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Right, what do we have next on the agenda? We're on to public comments.
Pardon the interruption. We do need a motion for the subcommittee appointments.
So moved.
Okay, okay. Motion by Vice Chair Six. I'll second that. Seconded by Watkins then. And any discussion before we move on? No? Okay, let's take a roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the vote. We have Chair Moore, so it
Chair
seems
Moore,
He's
Chair
breaking up.
Moore, you're not.
Sorry, freezing up here. But yes,
All right, thank you. We have Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Now we can move on to public comment, I believe. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the board for 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that's not on today's agenda, please raise your hand and follow the instructions on the screen.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I do see several members of the public have logged into the GoToWebinar. If you are logged in, if you would please press the hand button on your GoToWebinar control panel. I do see Ms. Stavely, and Ms. Stavely, this is for an item that's not otherwise agendized. I will send you an unmute request right now. And then you will have up to 2 minutes to speak to the board. Ms. Stavely, you have 2 minutes.
There I am. Sorry. Yes. Thank you very much for letting me have a couple minutes. My name is Melinda Stavely, and I am speaking with you in my position as chair of the board of the Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics. And I have been affiliated with the clinics for many, many years. I'm the retired vice president of Cottage Rehabilitation Hospital and have been involved with the clinics both during my service there as well as in the last 8 or so years, more substantially. I am speaking on behalf of our efforts to enlarge and create a really serviceable Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinic on the west side. The West Side Clinic has been and will continue to be part of the fabric of the West Side neighborhood.
Sorry to jump in here and interrupt you, but unfortunately it sounds like this comment relates directly to item number 1.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
right? So I'm sorry, but procedurally we have to have you wait until that item is being
Oh, all right.
heard.
I'm sorry.
So-
I don't have item
That's
number
all right.
1 or 2 or 3 or any such indication in front of me.
Understood. I understand. Sorry about that. It'll be just a few more minutes.
No
We'll
problem.
have an
No
opportunity.
problem for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.
Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the board on an item not on today's agenda?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'm scrolling through, just double checking to make sure I don't see any hand raised. Give them just a little minute. I don't see any other hands raised for public comment not on agendized items. Thank you.
And
Okay,
this is
great.
Marie. I wanted to state that we did receive general written correspondence and it was distributed to the board before this meeting. Thank you.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, well then we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes for January 11th.
So moved.
Okay, Vice Chair Six, thank you. We have a second
Second.
by Mr. Black. Any discussion about these minutes?
I have no further discussion.
Okay, nothing else? Okay, then we can take our vote.
All right, this is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
I wasn't there, so can I still vote?
So you would just abstain
Okay,
from the,
abstain.
from the vote.
okay, thank you. Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
And now the approval of consent calendar minutes from January 19th. We could have those up.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No? Okay, let's take our vote.
All right, so we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Abstain?
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
All right, and then January 25th, please. This was today, so if the staff could read those, it'd be helpful.
Thank you, Chair Moore. Today, the consent calendar, board members Olson and Black reviewed 1298 Las Positas Road. The project received project design approval with the project design approval compatibility analysis generally met and a comment.
Okay,
Move accept as presented.
Second.
all right, any discussion? No, okay, let's vote.
All right, we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And now any announcements, requests for continuances, etc.
Thank you, Chair Moore. Staff does have an announcement, just a reminder of the special ABR meeting this Friday, where we have confirmed attendance. We do have 4 as a quorum, and we have 4 members who have agreed to participate in the special meeting. Board Member Black, Vice Chair Six, Board Member Olson, and Board Member Whalen. And that meeting will happen at starts at 1 o'clock.
Thank you. Any subcommittee reports? I don't imagine we have any. Vice Chair Six, I think you're muted up here.
He's muted.
The FAR working group is heavily into their refinements or determinations of the values and FARs throughout the city and where those areas might be. So we're continuing. It's quite a job, but we're deep into it. In regards to the 101 subcommittee, working group, we are working. I think we've had 2 or 3 presentations and possibilities to return comments to the applicant, SBCAG and Calcutta and so forth. So it seems to be going with good back and forth dialogue. And again, we're continuing. And just to reiterate, it's very important for all our members to be, all of our appointees to be there, because the aesthetic concerns of this effort are, in my opinion, very important, and we have very few participants that are representing that. That's the end of my reports.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then let's move on. And we can get into the first item. Okay, there it is. We have item number 1, which is 621 West Mitchell-Traina Street for concept review. This is a proposal to demolish the existing 2-story, 4,000 square foot medical and professional office building and construct a 3-story, 10,633 square foot medical and dental clinic for the Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinic's new West Side Clinic. Second and third floors will be above a ground floor parking garage containing 14 parking spaces, including 1 ADA space and 6 bicycle spaces. The 10,285 square foot lot is located in the CR, or Commercial Restricted Zone, with the general plan land use designation of commercial medium-high residential. The project requires Planning Commission review for the following applications: a conditional use permit to allow a state licensed medical clinic to operate in the CR zone, a development plan for a non-residential floor area, and a parking modification to allow fewer parking spaces than required. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. This project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the urban design guidelines. Okay, do we have our applicant?
Thank you, Chair Moore. This is the first time this project has been before you, and I do have the case planner, staff case planner, Kelly Broadison, who would like to give a very short introduction to the project before the applicant team.
Great. Excellent.
Good afternoon. Hi. That's not right. Are you all able to hear me still?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is everyone able to hear me still?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Ms.
Good afternoon,
Can hear you
Chair
now.
Moore and board members. Thank you for introducing the project. As you know, this is, as Ms. McGuire stated, this is the first time this project is coming to ABR for a conceptual review. The project will proceed through a formal development review process with the land development team. Let's see. The project was designated by the City Council on March 3rd as a community benefit finding for the square footage. And community benefit projects are described as a community priority project, one that has a broad public benefit and is not principally operated for private and is necessary to meet a present or projected need directly related to public health, safety, or general welfare, for example, museums, childcare facilities, and health clinics. So as I said, this project was determined to be a community benefit project on March 3rd, 2020. After receiving comments from the board today, the project will be submitted for an application with the land development team. We'll continue to look through the design effort and the parking modification. There's also several public improvements that will be required as part of this project for the intersection of, I think it's Mitchell Terrena and San Andreas Street and Dutton Street. So I'm here for any further questions if you need clarification as you proceed through the meeting.
Okay, yes, I think before we jump into it, what specifically is the ABR's role in some of these, some of the issues that will be going back to city council, et cetera? Ms. Broderson, that was directed at you. Did we lose you? Is there anyone else in planning staff that can?
Chair Moore, I'm trying to send
Yes.
a webcam request to Ms. Broderson, but this at this point, the land use determination will be by Planning Commission, and the design will be for ABR.
Okay, so just to be clear, we have currently, we don't need comments about parking, number of parking spaces. It's simply the aesthetics. However, the size of the project, the square footage of the project is something that the city council has already weighed in on as a project, as a benefit, community benefit project. Is that correct?
I'm back. I don't know if anyone had a question for me. I lost connection there for a minute.
Oh.
This is Kelly.
Yes, we do, actually. Thank you, Ms. Broderson.
Okay.
So the questions are, we're trying to just make sure we understand what ABR's role in this is currently. So the number of parking spaces is not within our purview. The total square footage, is that, you know, as much as it drives the mass bulk and scale of this project, that sounds like because it's a community benefit project, that's, can you tell us more about that?
I can try. It's definitely a difficult project. It's going to be hard to make the findings, but again, it's defined as a community benefit project, not for private profit. So it's similar to projects like the Museum of Art on State Street. We have the Tesla dealership, Direct Relief, Museum of Contemporary Art, the Sanctuary Center. So certain projects like that are not typically compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, but because they have have been deemed as a community benefit project, they get different priorities, and also it's not reviewed as a normal neighborhood project like a house or a small commercial building. So yes, you wouldn't be, the parking wouldn't be your purview, and you would have to make the neighborhood compatibility findings as a typical commercial project in a commercial zone.
Okay. So it's, as you say, it's a little different than a normal project and compatibility findings. So we have to keep that in mind as we make our comments, I think, today.
Chair Moore,
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Chair Moore, sorry. I can't speak right now.
Okay. Mr. Six, do you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I'm still a little unclear if is it we cannot challenge the overall square footage of the project because it's a community benefit project. Just only, yes, we cannot challenge the overall square footage of the project.
So as part of the city's growth management project, or sorry, growth management program, there's a certain amount of square footage that is set aside to be community priority. And this has been given that designation by the city council.
But has it been set aside specifically and set for this particular project?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So you said a certain amount of square footage has been set aside for priority projects. Is the square footage set for this specific project and set aside for this specific project, and therefore we cannot or we should not concern ourselves with overall square footage of this as it results in mass spoken scale?
Chair Moore and board members,
Six, that's correct. This project has already been given that designation.
Again, it's just here for a conceptual review. All your comments and design comments will be taken into consideration
by the applicant.
However, it is a medical facility and they have certain needs for accessibility, maneuverability, and those things have only
actually increased
since the pandemic. So the project since the pandemic has actually changed a little bit in order to create more room for patients and doctors.
So it would be complicated
So it would be complicated to
reduce the square footage if once it's
reduce
already
the
been
square
given a
footage
community
once it's been
benefit
given
designation by council.
by council.
Well, I'm still not getting whether we can challenge and ask the applicant to reduce. I know we can't reduce. I acknowledge the importance of the program, but can we discuss square footage?
I believe, board member six, you can discuss it. As again, this is a concept review. Maybe suggest you look at the plans as a board and hear the applicant's presentation and then move forward from there.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Robertson.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, well, let's, so for the applicant, I understand it's a complicated project and there's a lot to discuss, but we do request that you limit your presentation to 15 minutes. So we have adequate time for everybody else and all the other projects. So if you could introduce yourselves and take us through this, please.
This is Trish Allen with Suzanne Elledge Planning and Permitting.
Amy Taylor, architect.
Chuck Fenzi, the CEO and Chief Medical Officer.
And Chair Moore, I appreciate Ms. Brodeson's introductory comments. That was all I wanted to really explain to the board this afternoon is about the community benefit and community priority designation that has been obtained. And I think Dr. Fenzi is going to walk you through some of the programming so that the board can understand those programming needs for the building, and then turn it over to Amy for the presentation. But I'll be present for any land use questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Chair Moore and the members of the board, thank you very much for having us. Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics is the largest safety net provider in South Santa Barbara County and is made up of 8 clinics. 4 of them are medical behavioral health clinics, 2 are dental, 1 is an integrated clinic that we share management with sanctuary centers, and 1 is the so-called bridge clinic devoted to folks with substance use disorder. So during the course of this horrible pandemic in which we find ourselves, we have had a lot of experience with keeping people safe, and our new design reflects that. Specifically, in order to keep people safe and separated from each other, we need to have a wider stairway, wider hallways. We need to have separate operatories separated by glass. The initial plan had a common set of operatories, which will no longer work in the face of this kind of infection. We have separate storage for the PPE and for personal storage that's required, medically required as a part of this safety measure. The outdoor terrace also is felt to be part of this safety measure, and we want to be prepared. If we haven't learned anything else from this pandemic, we know now the importance of expecting the next one. So in summary, we've spent quite a bit of time and effort in designing this to be a safe and efficient place. We've had input from the likes of Stan Chu, who is an architect from Los Angeles, who makes his living building medical clinics. Tom Boley has also had a view of this and has given us his opinion about that. Just for instance, we're going to be bringing new services to this area, specifically much broader behavioral health in the form of an integrated behavioral health system where medical providers and behavioral health providers are sitting together in the same room, dealing with patients and their medical problems. We also will bring a state-of-the-art dental facility to this site, this part of town, with highly sophisticated equipment, which Amy will get into in a second. And I don't want to steal any more of her time.
Thank you, Dr. Fenzi. Good afternoon, Chair Moore and members of the board. I've been working with Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics for a little over 6 years. We've developed new clinics in the city of Goleta. However, those projects were tenant improvements within existing commercial buildings. So this project is unique both for the nonprofit, it's unique to the neighborhood for sure, and it's really unique to the entire city because there is no other facility within our city like this new building. The original concept drawing shown here on the first slide draws from the California bungalow style, intended to integrate with some of the nearby residential development, but also as a nod of style to the existing clinic across the street. The existing clinic is more of a craftsman bungalow. And in this building, I felt that the flatter sloped roofs would fit better with the scale of this proposal and also provide opportunity for rooftop solar panels. Again, the stucco finish is intended to blend with other nearby development, which is fairly prevalent in the area. If we could go to page 2, please. And zoom into the top right. So this is just the vicinity map showing our location at the corner of Mitchell-Terrena Street and Almond Avenue, a block away from San Andreas Street. Scroll down, please. As Ms. Broderson mentioned, the site is zone CR, and the CR zone is intended for pedestrian-oriented development that primarily serves the neighborhood. This is the type of building proposed for the business that serves the neighborhood. They've been across the street at their existing site since the early 1970s. Around the CR zone, we have the multi-unit residential across Almond Avenue. And on the other side of Andreas is the 2-unit R2 zone. Scroll down, please. So on site, there's an existing 2-story commercial building with an open parking lot. Adjacent properties are also zone CR, but most of the development along Almond Avenue remains as 1- and 2-story residential development. And scroll down, please. This is just a closer view in of the existing site, and directly across the street, the other brown roof is the existing clinic. And if you could zoom out for a moment to the whole page. So on the left of this page, I've shown the various influences for the project, including the city and neighborhood context, the client program. We also have the OSHPD 3 code requirements, which is kind of a hybrid of standard office code mixed in with healthcare code. It is under the jurisdiction of the local building department. The CR zone has a 45-foot height limit, 10-foot front setbacks with 20 feet required above the second floor. Next to adjacent residential or non-residential zones, we have a 0 interior setback. On the next slide, please. So on this page, we just wanted to show you some of the existing and proposed street views. It looks like I don't have a lot of time here, so if we could come back to this during your questioning, I would appreciate it. And if we could go to the next slide, please. These also are panoramic views of the neighborhood context. In the middle of the sheet is another shot of the existing clinic across the street. But due to time, let's go ahead to the next page, please. So this page shows the existing development with the site plan on the right-hand side with parking layout. It's a one-way layout entering on Mitchell-Terena Street and exiting on Almond Avenue. Next slide, please. On this page, I'm comparing the existing and the proposed site plans. So we chose to follow the same pattern of development at the ground floor because it's the most efficient for the site. The existing plan on the left is annotated with new requirements. We're going to lose 1 parking space close to Mitchell-Terena because you can't back out across the sidewalk. Also, if this were to remain as an open parking lot, we would have to address walkways and landscape buffers. The proposed plan on the right has this similar sized ground floor plan, but now the parking is enclosed in a garage. The plan also responds to feedback from our PRT submittal. The city would like the property owner to dedicate 30 inches at the front along Mitchell-Terena for proposed improvements of the pedestrian master plan, which includes new bike lanes on Mitchell-Terena, a new crosswalk across at the corner of Almond across Mitchell-Terena, potential new turning lane into our parking garage, and also staff has asked us to straighten the sidewalk along Almond Avenue. That's for accessibility. Next slide, please. So this slide shows conceptual influences for the massing of the structure. At the upper right is a building section showing that we've tried to distribute HVAC equipment on multiple floors to serve directly the nearby stories. At the bottom of the page is the second floor plan, where we have consistently tried to maximize the buffer between our development and the dwellings next door. Similarly, on the left of the page, if you could zoom out to the whole page, on the third floor and the roof plans, more flat area roofs for equipment. And then at the roof, we're proposing solar panels. And if you could go to the next slide, please. This slide simply is used to designate the color coding used in our floor plans. We just don't have time for that today. So if you could move to the next slide, please. The first floor plan, we're proposing to be the reception area for the building. We've placed a trash room where we've lost that parking space in the garage. And the right-hand corner is a proposed learning center and conference room for both patients, staff, and community events. And the exterior landscape is going to be coordinated with new parkways at both streets. If you could go to the next page, please. The second floor will house the medical clinic with behavioral health counseling rooms and other patient services. We are proposing a roof terrace for staff to use during breaks and for potential outdoor gatherings or for waiting space overflow. Next page, please. The third floor will become the dental clinic with a back stair for staff to access the floor below and also as emergency exit to the second floor. And next slide, please. The roof plan. Next page. So this shows the building elevations with a section at the bottom. Annotations show heights, zoning height limit, and also proposed setbacks. We are requesting some setback modifications into the new setback at Mitchell Terrena to help us offset for the land dedication that will be given to the city. And if you could go to the final slide, please. These are just additional photos of the model we developed for your review, mainly just to give you an idea of where we're going with it. We would, at other times, would have been able to share this with you directly. Thank you.
Sorry about that. You have a minute left. You want to use that time to cover anything else in any more detail?
Not right now. You go ahead with questions.
Okay. I believe we need to open for public comment prior to questions. So we're going to do that now. If anybody in the public would like to make a comment regarding this project, please raise your hand by following the instructions on screen.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I do see several members of the public that would like to make public comment on this item. I have Landon Rank and Melinda Staveley. I will call you in that order. When I call your name, you'll have 2 minutes to speak and address the board on this item. Landon, I have unmuted you. You may speak. You have 2 minutes to speak, please.
Thank you. Chair Moore, members of the Architectural Board of Review, my name is Landon Rank. I'm a lifelong Santa Barbara County resident, and I'm the administrative manager for SB Act nonprofit here in town. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Westside Health Collaborative, which is a coalition comprised of Calm Family Service Agency, Harding Elementary School in the West Side, the Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics, UCSB's Gewurz Graduate School of Education, and SB Act. We wish to express our support for the proposed new building at 621 Mitchell-Terrena site. The members of the Westside Health Collaborative recognize that the Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics provides an essential healthcare safety net for some of the most vulnerable residents in our community, and that their value has been demonstrated during the pandemic more than ever. The continuation of their services is vital to the well-being of the Santa Barbara community. We believe that the building they propose will be fully compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and a welcome site for many. The project exemplifies well-thought-out design, as the neighborhood clinics have gone out of their way to ensure a wider, safer pedestrian walkway outside the building and have worked diligently on the interior layout to create a healthcare setting that's conducive to social distancing. Your positive reviews will help to ensure the continuation of the Westside Clinic's essential, high-quality, and affordable healthcare to those in the community that need it the most. We hope that you'll support the development of this critical resource for the Westside neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And our next speaker?
Our next speaker is Melinda Staveley. Ms. Staveley, I've sent you an unmute request. You'll need to unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes to speak to the board.
All right, thank you. So I introduced myself prematurely a few minutes ago. I am the chair of the board of Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics and would just say ditto to most of what has already said. I don't say it again. I would emphasize one of the strengths of Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics in general that will be reflected in the new Westside Clinic is the integrated medical and behavioral health services, an extremely important opportunity for the West Side. I would also want you to know that there is a great deal of passion on the part of the board and support for this whole health approach and the work of Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics. We are very enthusiastic in representing this form of care, which is aligned with the commitments of the state of California. I really don't have anything else to add that hasn't already been said. I'll certainly be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And do we have anyone else in the public who would like to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this point, I don't see any additional members of the public who have raised their, who have raised their hand to speak on this item. Mary, have we received any public comment, written comment?
Thank you, Christina. We did receive written correspondence for this item and it was distributed to the board before this meeting.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will close public comment and move on to questions. Who would like to start? Mr. Watkins, do you have any questions?
Thanks. I guess we can start with these. Would the city mind expanding these views of these elevations so we can zoom in a little closer on them? Please. And then with the applicant, would you mind walking us through these elevations to kind of give us more background on the design you came up with and why it reflects this way?
Sure, thank you. So at the bottom right of the screen is the west elevation facing Mitchell-Terrena Street. So this is the main entry to the facility, and again, nodding across to the clinic, existing clinic. Since they're neighborhood oriented, I felt that a slight residential feel to the proposal would be appropriate. And the use of the chimney in this elevation is also a reference to the extreme HVAC requirements of OSHPD 3. We have to fully exhaust certain rooms within the clinic. And I felt that the chimney was expressive of that code requirement as well. And then if you move, oh, and also to the far right in this slide, you can just barely see the hardware store next door. So I was trying to step away from the existing lower development and then enclosing the garage next to the hardware store. So now if you could scroll to the far left. So this is the elevation facing Almond Avenue with the adjacent residential development to the left of the building. We have not had the opportunity to do direct outreach with the neighbors due to COVID, but we really are looking forward to reaching out to the immediately adjacent as well as other nearby neighbors to get their input and to address any issues they may have. So on this facade, we have the Learning Center is at the far right corner. I used parapet walls on this facade to shield the rooftop equipment. I did feel that Almond and Mitchell Terrena could be a more urban feeling aesthetic to the building. And the small roof, decorative roof really, over the garage at the second floor was just a means of transitioning around the corner where I've tried to better dissolve the building into residential scale. So if you could scroll up the sheet. This is the south elevation. The grade area is the hardware store. So it almost becomes part of the view. And in this one, we do have the rooftop equipment behind now a decorative parapet and additional sun shading at the second story windows for the southwestern exposure here. And if you could scan to the right.
17 feet.
So this is the east elevation facing the residential neighbor. And here again, we have tried to push the building back from the neighbor as much as possible. And we're hoping to provide small trees on the roof terrace with plants as additional buffer.
And when you say neighbor, real quick, sorry to interrupt, you mean, is it a commercial neighbor or a residential neighbor?
The neighbor on this side is residential development within a commercially zoned property.
And then can we go back to the floor plan real quick, possible? Thank you for doing that. Can we go to the floor plan real quick? Thanks. So on this scheme, I appreciate that you had that comparison of kind of the footprint that's already existing right now and then what you guys are more or less maintaining as a footprint for structure. But from my understanding, it seems like the existing parking lot's uncovered, right? And now you guys are gonna basically enclose it and do kind of a podium in a sense, right? I mean, kind of, and do some, what was the reasoning behind closing the parking area?
The parking garage is twofold. Really for current requirements, for city requirements. To develop this lot, you almost have to enclose the parking. We lose a lot of square footage for landscape buffers if it were an open lot. And we're already quite pinched. We lost square footage towards the front of the building, which we are asking back in setback mod at the Learning Center. And we also had to add in a walkway inside of the garage because you have to exit directly to the street. You cannot exit through the building.
Right.
Lost square footage on both sides, and just the overall nature pushed us to enclosing it. It also does give the opportunity for floating the upper floors broader than this smaller first floor footprint.
Thanks. And then did you have photos on the front end of your presentation, aerials of the surrounding neighborhood? Do you mind walking through kind of what we see right now on Almond Street and coming up against your guys' proposed development? Maybe just, what kind of lot parcels they are, if it's residential, commercial, and then heights, 1 story, 2 story, if you know that. Please.
Oh boy. It's really a mix of 1 and 2 story. It may be easier to see it in the photos, which might be in the next page or 2. Go to the next page to start. And go ahead and zoom in somewhere to let the board see the context. Okay, so at the upper left, this is a shot on Mitchell-Terrena near Highway 101. Predominantly 2-story residential in this area of the neighborhood. With some,
is this right next to your development?
the development lot is visible at the corner, just past the truck there. Those trees shield the existing 2-story building. Yes. And then if you scroll to the right, so this is directly across the street from the existing building on Mitchell-Terrena, the existing site development. And off to the left is residential development, 1 and 2 stories. Off to the right is commercial development, which is 1 and 2 stories. And it's a mix of some Spanish style, some bungalow-ish style. Let's see, and I guess from here we can scroll down.
Do you have any on Almond Street?
Yes. There's the context of the commercial neighborhood. And keep going down to the bottom. So this is a view across the street on Almond. The far left is the corner of Mitchell-Terrena, 1-story multi-unit with 2-story apartment, 1-story, 2-story, and more 2-story down the road. I think on the previous page, I have a pano of our side of the street at the bottom of the page. So the adjacent neighbor is 1-story residential. The lot is fairly full of development. And I think that several of the properties on this side of the street are 1-story.
Thanks. And then you started to touch on the mechanical systems. Do you have a roof plan or any drawings that you think will be helpful to kind of get an understanding of where the mechanical units are located on visible rooftops?
I don't believe mechanical equipment is visible. I have parapets on all floors. So at the roof level, we'll have a middle flat roof surrounded by parapets that are also framed with the sloping roof.
Nice.
And then at the third floor below that, so at the third floor, these rooftop units are on the roof of the second floor, also screened with parapets.
Gotcha.
And then to the right of that, if you could scroll, thank you. These units are on the first floor roof above the garage. We wanted equipment far away from the residential zones. We definitely have to have the elevator on backup generator. Sizing wise for the other projects, we've needed at least one per clinic. So I just allocated the space for 2 generators for now. We're hoping to reduce that with solar battery backup power as well. But I'm guessing we will at least need 1 generator.
And then do you guys have a transformer located yet? Or do you have something you can tie into nearby?
Actually, we will have a fairly significant electrical upgrade that will be coming from across Mitchell-Terena. The current building is fed through the residential neighborhood on single-phase power on Alman Avenue. So that will have to be abandoned, and we have not yet contacted Edison to start working through the design of their upgrade. And we're going to try to coordinate with the city's improvements at Mitchell-Terena in terms of trenching there. So no, we don't have the placement yet.
Oh, gotcha. And then, do you mind clarifying there's a request for a parking waiver, right? I think it's maybe like 49 that you guys are going, you have 12 that you can provide on site. Is the 49 from the proposed program that you guys are going for, or is there anything additional like guest parking or parking for the daycare? I guess. Has this lot just been so like undeveloped for so long that the parking center just blew way past it?
The parking numbers are based on the square footage of development. We do have Scott Shell available, I believe, to answer any questions regarding parking. He has told us that his analysis is showing that the proposed parking on site will function for patient use. So the additional parking demand is for staff use. And Santa Barbara Neighborhood Clinics is trying to locate those new spaces and have had delays.
And we're not going to get into number of parking spaces under this review at this time.
No, I just think it's important though, because we have to give feedback on the parking modification, right, to be supported or not.
I don't believe that's the case. Can staff weigh in on that?
Oh, yes.
We'll see. How do you do this?
Can you hear me? This is
Kelly.
Kelly.
We can hear you.
Good
Bit of an echo.
afternoon, board members.
Yes,
Yes, you can weigh on the aesthetic
portability
of
the
mod.
mod.
The board itself
does not
approve or disapprove modifications.
Right, but we have to provide comments, right, on like whether we could support it.
You can provide comments on if you support the mod from an aesthetic standpoint, if it fits in with the design of the project.
Right, but not the number of parking spaces.
Correct. That wouldn't be under the board's purview today.
Thank you.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have questions?
Chair Moore?
Mr. Whalen, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Could we go back to that roof plan of the HVAC equipment? Ms. Taylor, what are those large dashed circles?
Ah. OSHPD 3 requires separation from exhaust outlets and air intake. So those dotted lines represent 50 foot, oh gosh, now I can't even remember, 25 foot. Anyway, I can't put an exhaust fan within that circle. I can't put a plumbing vent stack within that circle. So that's what those are indicating, the complexities.
All right. That was very minor, thank you. And then I couldn't really find an accurate section on the building. If Mr. Bolton or Ms. Taylor can point one out, could you talk about the floor to floor heights, please?
Here it is on the bottom of this page. Okay, so I'm working with, trying to work with a 9-foot finished ceiling. So at the first floor, I'm hoping for a 12.5-foot floor to floor, squeezing just a little bit of room for ductwork under the structural. And at the second floor, I'm looking at a 13-foot floor to floor. And at the third floor, I'm gonna try to squeeze it to 11 feet because I have a little bit of attic space under the sloped roofs for ductwork, potentially.
Thank you. And what's driving that 15-foot floor to floor on the second level?
13.
Sorry, my glasses aren't that close. So 12, 6, 13, and 11. Thank you. That's really all the questions I have, Chair Moore.
Okay. Vice Chair Six, questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. Is the neighborhood clinic going to continue and use the across the street facility for part of their program?
Dr. Finzi, I think you're muted. You're trying to answer.
Sorry. Yes, we intend to use that for more services. There are two ideas. We are expanding our behavioral health services intensely. And so one thought is to use that for a second tier behavioral health. Right now we are incorporating or integrating behavioral health with medical, physical health, and have those two specialists deal with patients. But some people need to have a broader, longer term behavioral health experience. And
sorry to jump in here. So, Mr. Six, did that answer your question?
I think my focus is, are there any of the programs that are in any of the program space that are existing in this building able to be developed over on your existing site?
No, we
yes
don't
or
think
no?
so.
Okay,
No,
thank you. Thank you. Is the Ms. Taylor, was there any exploration of and I know this is, well, I'll just ask the question. Was there any consideration of a basement level for labs and other communal functions that would be appropriate in a basement and collected position in the basement?
No, we did not look at a basement level. Generally, the clinicians want their labs to be near the patient care areas because there's quite a bit of interaction between the two groups.
Okay, thank you. Is there, you know, I noticed on your front sheet that there's 0 setback required on non-residential neighbors. What about the residential neighbor to the plan east, where you have the parking garage right up against that residential neighbor? Is that a residential neighbor or a non-residential zone that makes you that affords you to have 0 setback on ground level?
It's a non-residential zone that is currently developed with residential use.
Okay, thank you. Was there any exploration of, and would OSHA allow you to have a more sophisticated HVAC system, such as a central plant and a 2 or 3 pipe system that would free up some of the rooftop package units devoted that you have now devoted?
We have not contracted a mechanical specialist, and I have earmarked spots for available equipment. Our experience in past projects is that the engineer actually often wants more equipment than we had planned for. OSHPD 3 has fairly extreme ventilation requirements. We have positive and negative airflow rates depending on which type of room it is. So it has to do with actual air capacity and capacity and ductwork.
But there's, as far as you know, you haven't determined whether OSHPD requirements would negate a central plant and a chiller and a pipe system, correct?
I'm not familiar, I'm sorry.
Okay. And my last question, has the traffic engineers evaluated the more enclosed automobile entry off that busy street into directly into the garage? Or there's I think that is a pretty hectic left-hand turn there. Have they weighed in on further limitations due to an enclosure and an entry there?
I have not heard that feedback from staff. I only heard that they're considering a formal left turn lane for our entry.
Okay, I got it. Okay, that's my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Who else? Who else has questions?
I do. Leon.
Okay, Mr. Olson. Please go ahead.
To follow up on Mr. Six's question, has there been a traffic study made?
Staff analyzed traffic and gave us some input during the PRT process. They said that this project will have no impact to traffic.
Chair Moore and board members, this is Kelly again. Staff will formally weigh in on supporting for the parking mod and traffic generation when they submit for the land development application. But at this point, using the city's traffic model rates for office use in this traffic model area, the proposed project would generate approximately 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. new trips. Since there isn't a medical clinic peak hour trip generation rate, staff also looked at the ITE trip generation for both medical and medical dental. And when using the most conservative rate, the net new numbers of trips would be 15 AM and 22 PM peak trips. And distributing these trips to the city grid would not use 1% or more of the intersection capacity at any of the 27 identified future anticipated and impacted intersections, but would not constitute a project-specific impact. Basically what Ms.
Taylor said.
Thank you. What are the roofing materials that are shown on the elevations, on the slope roofs?
Thank you, Member Olson. Originally, I actually had planned on comp shingle to go with the rest of the neighborhood. But we are also considering flat concrete tile due to the commercial nature of this project.
Maybe you would elaborate a bit about your choice of, I think, craftsman style or bungalow style, adopting that for this building. I guess maybe my question is this: did you consider other styles, architectural styles, other than the ones you chose?
Somehow I settled on this as reflecting what's going on in the neighborhood. It seems this neighborhood warrants a more traditional type of style than a contemporary building. And that's why I went this way. I felt that the roof surfaces help to mask parapets at the upper levels, but also provide opportunities for solar panels.
And did you look at alternative west elevation entry solutions?
No, not yet.
Let's see if I have other questions. I don't have other questions.
Okay, Vice Chair Six, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm sorry for the time, but you know, I think one sense, I just want, I know this is an important priority building, but I want further clarity on whether our comments can challenge the overall square footage of this building. I wondered if the attorney is here to tell us in regards to our ability to make comments that, or just need to know how much of a purview we have in relationship to the priority issuance or importance of the square footage and therefore the bulk of the building.
Thank you, Chair Moore. Ms. Ostringer is not logged into the meeting. Perhaps Development Review Supervisor, Ms. Unzueta, can address that.
Chair Moore and board members, your question with respect to challenging the square footage of the building, I think first of all, I think that when this project returns, since this is the first concept review, we will have better information and perhaps even have the city attorney, Ms. Ostringer, here to help us with this. But your review and comments today would basically be with regard to the design of the project, the aesthetics, the neighborhood compatibility. And so if your comments happen to indicate that the size is not compatible with the neighborhood, I mean, I think that would be an aesthetic comment with as it relates to the design. I don't know, to be very honest with you, whether or not you could ask that the square footage be reduced. You could definitely talk about the design of the project and how it fits into the neighborhood and what you think alterations or modifications need to be made in order for that to happen. So I think at this point, that's what your purview is.
Okay, thank you, Irma. Ms. Unzueta, excuse me.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? I have a few. So looking at page A1.1, the existing site plan versus the proposed, it seems that you've simply taken the existing parking lot and essentially duplicated that layout and building location on the ground floor. Is that sort of the general approach?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, is there a reason other than the existing entrances and exits to the parking lot that was done?
Well, it keeps the car flow away from the corner of Almond and Mitchell Terrena. I mean, if you were to, the entry to the side is appropriate for the location. And when you look at potential layouts based on current standards, there's really not a lot you can do with this site. We could make the entire ground floor parking without any interior entrance space. But even to try to accomplish that, you end up with problems getting in and out of the site, in and out of that additional parking. So when you look
is the approach to, sorry to
That's all right.
interrupt you, but so is the approach assuming that by keeping the layout roughly the same, that the maneuvering clearances for these spaces is acceptable then? Because it seems like they're pretty tight.
I checked the distances per the parking standards.
Could you repeat that, please?
I did check the parking standards for the distances, and they do meet the standards.
Okay, I guess we'll have to take your word. And has staff reviewed the parking maneuvering?
Where's the thing?
It went to Public Works in PRT.
Chair Moore, this is Kelly. Yes, this, the PRT letter of transportation staff included a comment that the project will be required to comply with the standards for parking design. They didn't put much more detail in the PRT letter. However, as I said, PRT is a free app, so we will be looking at this in more detail as they proceed.
Okay, thank you. And then I understand the property to the, I guess in this case, the south lot line. I understand that that's commercially zoned parcel, but currently those are apartments, correct? With
I
a
believe
side
that-
yard and landscaping.
I believe they're separate dwelling units. And one of them is only about 5 feet off the property line.
Mhm.
Chair Moore,
this
this
Is
is
any-
Kelly. This is the project at 1425 Almond is a single-family residence. And I don't know the exact size, but it's not multifamily that I can tell.
Thank you. Was any consideration given for an additional buffer or some sort of relief from the property line? Not necessarily the entire property line, but just some locations along that line to allow for a little relief?
In this submittal, we did not address that, but I did see that recently at the new residential development at Anacapa and Ortega, where they put small pockets in the sidewall for plants. And since we have a few spots, little offsets in the angled parking, it may be possible to look into those as relief elements. That also would be
Okay,
dependent on what the neighbor wants to do.
Sure. And then in the photo show the existing sidewalk along, is it Acorn or Almond? Not Acorn. Those large trees, are those
I think you're freezing, but I can jump in and say that the first tree is a eucalyptus, which is going to be problematic for the building development, but also the public works staff has pointed out that the meandering sidewalk does not work for accessibility. The crossing across the driveway, it does not work for accessibility. So the city wants us to return to a standard straight sidewalk. So basically existing trees will be removed and replaced. And we just haven't gotten into that. Public Works is currently designing the Mitchell-Terrena improvements, and we hope to liaise with them on almond, street trees, etc.
okay? Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Nope.
Chair Moore.
Okay, then let's, oh, go ahead, Mr. Watkins.
Sorry, just to clarify real quick about, you said, Ms. Taylor, those trees are going to be replaced. Could I ask the applicant, Chair Moore, to show where they're being replaced or how?
I think our proposed site plan shows proposed locations of new street trees.
It does on sheet A 1.1.
I reviewed some of the nearby street trees on Almond Avenue. In front of the adjacent residence is 1 or 2 large ginkgo trees, which might work well for our area of Almond Avenue for nice color, but then a little bit of opening up during the winter. And then on Mitchell-Terrena Street, it's predominantly firewheel trees in this area. I don't know if that's the direction the city is going to want to continue, or if they may want to transition to a different type of tree. There are southern magnolias on San Andreas, and there are a few down the street on Almond as well.
Thank you.
Okay, if that's all the questions, let's move to comments. Please. We could have the applicants turn their webcams off, please. Okay, who would like to start?
I can start.
Great, go ahead.
I think the adoption here of the bungalow style and the craftsman style doesn't make this building more compatible with the neighborhood. I think that the west elevation, which is the front elevation, is awkward and unattractive, and the entry seems difficult and uninviting. I would like to see some further studies of an architectural style other than the craftsman style. I think I have another comment, but I think maybe perhaps it's better when we get into the discussion before the vote regarding findings. I think I'll wait for that one. And I'll see if I have one other question.
Okay.
I don't have any other comments.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Six.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I am in fully support of the mission and purpose of this project and the neighborhood clinics, and am in full sympathy with the demands, the extraordinary demands that a medical facility like this is placed upon it. But I am having a real hard problem with both the mass, bulk, and scale, the neighborhood compatibility, and the design of this particular solution. And I think the neighborhood compatibility is not even close in my mind, and will unless there is significant reduction in the massing and scale and design of this project. And as my questions alluded, there's, that the extent of what I feel is required to bring it into compatibility has to do with significant moving, utilizing either basement areas or finding other places to put the clinic's program, finding other types of more efficient or HVAC systems that would not impact as much as the systems that are being explored now. I think I agree that this style is just not it's just not working here. I think that and the project will probably continue to be large and be on the edges of project compatibility. And I think there's some other type of architecture that would make it more palatable. But right now it's not, the architecture is not there. Sometimes larger buildings like this need to have less detailing and let the large parts be what they may and bring less attention to their scale. I I find that the existing circulation relying on an additional entry off of, I won't say that. I say that one of the goals and even mentioned in the design guidelines, non-discretionary design lines is to push the entry of the garage back. It's sitting right here as close to the street as it is. It's unfortunate. I think that there needs to be a lot of restudy and in order to bring it in mind into neighborhood compatibility. With that idea of determining neighborhood compatibility, I think we need to see more straight on elevations because it's going to be a point of deliberation. We need the block wide elevation and up and down Mitchell terrain, at least up to San Andreas, and 2 or 3 properties closer going east. And I think we need to see 3 or 4 of the elevations of the units, residential units east of this building along Almond. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Who else has comments to add? Mr. Watkins? Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Moore. I agree with a lot of what Board Member Vice Chair Six said. The program itself, the intention is totally fine. I don't see in any reason why, this group can't continue operating in Santa Barbara like it has been and providing these services. The trick is, though, that compatibility is going to be critical, and I think that is separate from what the program is. There's the intention of the program, and then there's actually how to make that fit into the community, which is what we're looking at right now. I knowing that area, and especially knowing that street and even Almond, I just wouldn't ever see this, or I wouldn't ever think that this would be something that I could see in that neighborhood. Somebody showed me that. It's very fortress-like, honestly. And I think from a bigger sense, it doesn't reflect, I think, the idea of a community clinic in the architecture. And sometimes I think that's really important to convey. There isn't any, I think on the, starting from the bottom and moving up on the ground level and pedestrian sense, I don't see how this is providing any kind of enhancement to the neighborhood for a pedestrian experience, or even to somebody who's working here or a patient who's going to be coming up here. There's not very much relief. You're walking down the sidewalk, from what I understand from the design, and then you're just there. You either pulling in or you're coming into the front doors. And what's one of the things that's really important about the urban design guidelines, and I'll point this out, is how does this enhance the character of the neighborhood? How are you incorporating natural features in the landscape and stuff? I think there's a lot of things that aren't really fleshed out at the ground level. And then it's hard because on the flip side, there's these requests for modifications, to push back, into the front yard because there's a setback that's imposed. So that you guys are asking for it to kind of arbitrarily just to go back in there. Transformer, it takes up a lot of square footage, especially on commercial sites. We know that, unfortunately, but that hasn't been looked at yet, and that will need to be placed somewhere on the frontage, and they should be screened. And that's not reflected in the architecture yet, and there's already a very limited amount of space at the ground level. So I think that's kind of, in my mind, looking forward, that's going to be problematic. At ground level, there's a safety component. There's these things about that the city has plans, I think somebody said, to do some potential alterations in Mitchell-Trena Street. But that's discussion, and that's hard because as a board, we're being asked to provide compatibility findings that support the project, when the applicant or the city can't even confirm to us yet whether those things are even viable. They're not ongoing yet. They're not approved permits. So we have to treat those as hypotheticals, unfortunately, because the same way we would treat an adjacent space as a hypothetical. You know, these things aren't there yet. So there's safety components for me that I think make me nervous that we have to accept, or that I'm being asked to accept, a parking layout and an approach and an exit that actually are going to create some challenges. They may not increase traffic demand or traffic in terms of loads per, you know, what the city's defining as their nodes or whatever, but anyone that knows that area and that street, it's a very, Metro Train is already a kind of a hard street. Almond's a very narrow street, residentially speaking. It's super hard to pass through there. And I don't think the city ever looks at that, so their findings aren't going to say that, but anyone who knows that neighborhood, who lives there, or even walks it or drives it or knows people there, we've experienced that. And I think that's being left out right now. So I think one thing that would be important next round would be looking at this ground level first, looking at if there are other options to rearrange the parking to make it a little bit more inviting for the program itself and create some more release at ground level for entries, approaches. I see some excessive circulation that somehow that can maybe be tweaked around a little bit to still provide circulation that gets you through parking, but also gets you to your elevator core and your entrances of your buildings. I think that could be centralized and be made more efficient. The parking right now is automatically enclosed and it's going to pretty much every edge of the site on those parts of the property. So now the adjacent neighbors have no relief and they're looking at a 2-story wall in some instances there's no movement in scale. There's no detailing. It's very flat and monotonous. There's no landscaping to buffer between you and the adjacent neighbors. That's not a very, especially in the neighborhood edges, that's not a very good feel, and that doesn't really lend itself to being compatible to urban design guidelines. As a massing as a whole, I said in the beginning, it's kind of fortress-like, and if we can pan out to the elevations real quick to see kind of all 4 of them, please. You know, the glazing is very repetitive. Almost on every elevation, there's a pattern that gets established and kind of dictated, and then there's no relief in sizing. There's no alternation of glazing or even orientation of them. There's a very repetitive rhythm on each respective side. And it is disjointed to the next relevant elevation. And even the north elevation, I mean, this is the first 3-story building in that area, but there aren't even a lot of 2-story buildings on Almond. So you can see from the scale of the adjacent 1-story house, it's a very modest house. And now we have this structure that's kind of hulking over and very fortress-like. I don't see how that's engaging in any way, whether it's through landscaping, breaking up of massing at ground level, punches that go in and out in terms of plan view. Those are effective, that can work there. And I like that you guys had proposed this plaza on the 2nd story. And I think you kind of see little bits of it with the tree lines on the east elevation. But that's another point out of the urban design guidelines is those are typically, it's more encouraged to have them at ground level. You know, you start to get an interaction there in a pedestrian frontage. You start to get a relief that starts to happen in your building, but also serves as double duty for the people that are waiting to go inside their appointments, hanging out outside, staff that want to get fresh air. And everyone knows right now, after a year of it, those are valuable right now. We need to be looking at how to provide these open spaces, outdoor spaces for the workers, the patients, the people passing through. And so it may not be set in stone yet, but we've learned through this last year how important those points are. And I just don't see how this building is kind of turning its back to all those things right now in terms of form, in terms of massing. And so those are kind of things I'm hoping that I can convey across that I see as issues right now. It's not the program. There's even ways with the mechanical. That's another thing I'm going to say is I think problematic from my standpoint is the roofing, the mechanical is actually doing a disservice to the massing. These big, broad elements of roofs that kind of just seem like they're stuck on top of a flat, you know, this could be stripped down. It could be a Spanish style building, but then the craft and roofs get thrown on top of it. And then you're hiding it sometimes with this massive core in the middle, which makes sense for the mechanical, but then it pops up and it doesn't really reflect the other parts of the architecture. There's this little chimney that's out of scale for the rest of the building, but it's kind of meant to mimic something residential, but it doesn't reflect the scale of the rest of the project. If there's a way you can get some of that mechanical, and like Vice Chair Six brought up, maybe looking, you know, with the mechanical engineer up front to get something differently located so you don't have so much excessive roof lines and pits being created for these mechanical systems, maybe that's what gets partially buried in the ground, in the basement. Not everything else, but maybe that's something when you start digging out a little bit and getting that pushed under and just getting enough space so you have some air vents and stuff. But I think what I'm seeing when I look at those plans is a lot of roof and flat spaces are being created now for this mechanical, and it hasn't even really been vetted yet. So I think that would really serve the project for the next round to see how you guys can tighten that up and actually get a system to not start overwhelming the architecture, because that's visible right now. I think I already said right now, the modification, I don't see, that one modification asking to kind of push forward again. I don't understand why that's really critical, especially on a new project, when there's space to move that around. The parking itself, I would reserve my judgment on whether I could support the parking modification for the reduction of spaces based on the fact that the way the parking is proposed as a solution right now does not lend itself to be compatible with the neighborhood for the reasons I already outlined. So that would be my position, at least on that front right now. The direct outreach, I think, would really be great for you guys to reach out to the community, since this is a clinic for the community, and talk to your neighbors about what they see as this, because this would be surprising for me. I know knocking on the door may be hard right now. Maybe there's other ways you guys can do it electronically or stuff. You guys can figure that out, but I think that would be important and critical between now and the next one. Yeah, I hit my points. I think enough of them, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Who else has comments? Mr. Whalen, is that a hand raised? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I'm going to reiterate what others have said, maybe in a little more detail. To start with, as Mr. Olson did, I think the choice of bungalow imagery is completely misguided. Bungalow style is low and horizontal. What we have presented to us are some cherry-picked details that are just applied. If you look at the front elevation, I think it would be the east elevation. There's an attempt at defining the entryway by a large, essentially it just becomes an awning. Well, a proper bungalow would have a large, generous porch. This doesn't really read as that at all. There seemed to be an odd mashup of details, these wavy walls, the parapet walls. I don't know. I would encourage the abandonment of the bungalow style. It's just not appropriate for a building of this size and bulk. And on that point, I think this is a great challenge to the designer to try to rationally present this very important neighborhood project on a very tight site. There've got to be some other solutions that would allow it to do what it needs to do. But as it is, the proposed design lacks a cohesive architectural image. The size, bulk, and scale are not compatible with the neighborhood. This is most evident at the, what would that be, the east elevation, where a 17-foot high wall continuous along the property line sits next to a very tiny, and Dr. Gebhard would call it cute, as if I recall, cute little building that has windows. Both of those buildings have windows that stare into a large blank wall. This is a terribly difficult challenge for a designer, and I don't think this design has addressed that at all. So I really can't support this proposed design at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with comments? No? Okay. Now this is a challenging site with a lot of program to try and pack in there. So this is definitely going to be a challenging project. And I don't have anything to add other than that my the rest of the board has said. So we need a motion. Would somebody be willing to put something forth? Yes, Vice Chair Six.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I propose a indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments. Number one, the board is fully supportive of the mission and purpose of the program and is in full sympathy with the demands on the architecture and or demands on the architecture and the size of the project that program delivers. However, number two, however, the board finds that the present design and size of the project will that the board anticipates a tremendous challenge to find neighborhood compatibility. To the extent that the applicant should go way beyond simply manipulating the masses of the present design, but should look at more significant, deeper changes, perhaps to program or mechanical systems and or use of a basement area and the like. Number three, that the architecture chosen for this particular mass and scale and proportions is entirely inappropriate and not working at this time. And the board urges the applicant to restudy the style, the architecture chosen to be more appropriate. In regards to finding neighborhood compatibility, the next review should include an overall plan to scale of the building and all the surrounding neighborhood properties and elevations of the same, at least for this block and as appropriate down west, down east, going east on the Terena. Next comment would be that there has been several suggestions that the existing ground level parking flow and layout is problematic and presents neighborhood incompatibility and should be, and the board suggests that it be restudied. I think that is it.
I'll second that.
Was that Mr. Watkins?
Yes, Chairman.
Seconded? Okay. All right, and discussion. Would the maker of the motion consider adding a request that a representative from the city attorney's office be present at the next hearing to provide additional explanation for ABR scope of review?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, is that okay with the seconder?
Yes, it is, Chairman.
Any other discussion?
I would add one item under discussion for consideration.
Okay,
For the month.
go ahead.
Would Vice Chair 6 consider including in the comments that the applicant work with mechanical engineer and SoCal Edison to confirm the best possible system approach for mechanical system and for the transformer that they'll need?
Yeah, Board Member Watkins, I think I mentioned in one of my items to in regards to the mechanical systems, I will add that the applicant should at least have some conceptual commitment from Edison in regards to the electrical service and transformer needs.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to read this back? Yes, let's do that.
All right, this is Mary. So the motion is to continue indefinitely with the following comments. Number one, the board is supportive of the purpose of the program and is in sympathy with the demands of the architecture and size of the project. Number two, the board finds that the current design and size of the project presents a challenge to neighborhood compatibility. The applicant should go beyond manipulating the masses of the current design and look at more significant changes, such as changes to the program, mechanical systems, and or the use of basement areas. The applicant should also have at least some conceptual commitment with Edison regarding the electrical service and transformer needs. Number three, the architecture chosen for this particular project's mass, scale, and proportions are inappropriate, and the board urges the applicant to restudy the architecture. Number four, the next review should include an overall plan showing the scale of the building and the surrounding properties, as well as elevations for the street block going east on Mitchell-Terena Street. Number five, there have been several suggestions on the board that the existing ground level parking layout is problematic and presents an issue to neighborhood compatibility and should be restudied. Number six, the city attorney should be present at the next hearing to provide additional explanation for ABR scope of review.
It sounds great, Mary. And I won't be able to pronounce your last name. So I'll have to go in for Mary.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, let's take our vote.
All right, we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hicks,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes,
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Chairman Moore, I have a,
Okay, thank you. Go
I
ahead.
would like, yes, the staff said initially, as we began this hearing, that findings were going to be difficult. And I think all of us agreed that compatibility in this neighborhood, size, bulk, and scale, that this is perhaps not compatible. Yet the council has indicated that what they're preference over what we might say. So I think they put us in a predicament here as to how to go forward with this. And I think what they're saying is they're going to override what we might think about it, and I think that should be made clear.
Yes, quite possibly. So that's why we need to have somebody from the city attorney's office present to help us get through this.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you. For,
Those are fair sentiments, Mr. Olson.
Yes. So let's take a 2-minute recess, stretch the legs, and we will return for item number 2.
I'm in a meeting right now, like that I'm on.
Okay. Item number 2, 421 South Milpa Street, concept review. This is a proposal for interior and exterior alterations to an existing hotel. The exterior alterations include, but are not limited to, a new stair tower, window and door alterations, replacement of covered entry porch roof with new upper deck, and a new Juliet balcony. Site improvements and alterations to the existing pool area are proposed, including but not limited to a new spa, trellis, pool lift, fence, and gates. Additional site improvements include a new and accessible ramp, fence, gate, paving, alteration to planted area, and removal of vegetation. Interior improvements include interior alterations of existing rooms, conversions of a manager's unit into a new hotel room, and conversion of non-accessible room number 3 into accessible room. A modification is requested for improvements and alterations to the required front setback. Coastal development permit is required for the conversion of the manager's unit to a hotel room. And get slide 2, please. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis, the urban design guidelines, and outdoor lighting design guidelines. Okay. We have just a question for staff. So in the project description, it continually says lists items that are but not limited to those items. So it's difficult to understand what the exact scope of the project is. So maybe in the future, rather than saying not limited to, let's be specific.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I did want to give a brief introduction on this project. This is the first time you've seen this project. As it is proposed right now, the project requires a coastal development permit and a modification for alterations made in the front setback area. Staff has lent support for the modifications zoning wise that are located in the front setback. This is located along Milpas Street, where there's, in addition to the zoning front yard setback, there's a Milpas Street widening setback, which is regulated by Public Works. The applicant does not have, is not proposing any development in that area on this project.
Okay. Great. Do we have the applicant? Do we have our applicant?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you, yes.
And you can't see me. There you are.
There you go. Okay, before you jump in, please take note of the 15-minute timer. If you could keep your presentation to that time, we'll have opportunity for questions and comments. Okay.
No problem.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dawn Sherry. I'm the architect for the project. And just maybe to clarify what you were just talking about regarding the scope of work, as you can see on the title sheet, the scope of work is really detailed. And I think that for the purposes, because there are so many small elements, the purpose of the application and the noticing maybe hit the big ones is what I'm thinking, but I'll stay out of that. I'm going to go over what the issues are, what the scope of the work is. And Christina outlined that a portion of the project that requires, there's another portion of the project that's not included in this submittal. It is part of the project, but it's not part of this submittal. We could not submit it because we have been told by staff that the portion in the front yard setback, the Milpas Street widening setback cannot be included in this. And not only, it's not part of a modification for a zoning modification, it's part of a public works modification, variance, they call it. So there's a 10-foot street widening setback off of the right-of-way of Milpas that we're still trying to resolve. And I won't get into that right now, but I'll just go to the site plan. If we could go to the next page, please. The project as it stands today in the submittal consists of some alterations to the west or the Milpas Street side of the existing facade. No new exterior, no new square footage is being proposed to that facade. I'll show you that when we get to the exterior elevations. Also a part of that is you'll see to the short end of the L on that building, that hip, there's a small balcony below that used to have a hipped roof over it. So part of the proposal is to remove the hipped roof. Yes, it's right, it says number 45. It's right in there, yeah. And thank you, whoever's doing that. And that's, used to be a roof over the entry portico that's now being converted to a balcony off of the upper level hotel room as an added guest feature for that room. Part of the, to the west of that, at grade level, is a new ADA ramp to the sidewalk. On the back side of that small L is a new door, a conversion of a window, that number, where it says number 44, right in that area, there's an existing window that's being converted to a door. There are, right in that area there, you'll see some partitions and some doors. Those are glass partitions for added security. And there's already a glass enclosure around the pool, but we're altering it. You can see to the east, to the left-hand side of the pool, you'll see a number 31. That's an existing glass enclosure that encompass the pool in a more smaller enclosure, and we're enlarging that enclosure to add a spa and a outdoor seating area with a fireplace, which is number 50. The fireplace is number 50. So the glass enclosure is getting slightly altered. All of the hardscape around the pool and the pool area, as well as around the guest room access on the lower level, is being replaced with a permeable paver. You'll see to the south of the pool, there's a small trellis. It's about 8 foot high, flat, very traditional Spanish style trellis, just so the guests can have some shade, some partial shade. The same partial shade element is to the east of the new spa, which is item number 25 on this diagram. Directly below that is a new stair tower that takes the place of an existing stairway that accesses the upper level hotel suites. You can see the outline of that existing stairway, and it's noted as number 27 on the site plan. And we're removing that stairway and providing a new ADA stairway up to the second, as a second exit from the upper level balcony that accesses all those rooms. There are minor alterations to the building itself, including removal of some of the older shutters that are a bit outdated, alterations to some sizes of doors and windows, and you'll see that when we get to the elevations. Those are the major components. I might come back. Lighting, it also includes some lighting, replacement of they are adding addition of some corbels to the underneath sides of the eaves, and generally just bringing this building into more of a traditional Spanish architecture that, and adding charm giving elements to we don't necessarily need to add square footage to this building, and there's really no way to. We're just trying to make it the best that we can, and you'll see that in the elevation. So next page. Existing lower level floor plan. Next page. Existing upper level floor plan. Next page. Proposed lower level plan showing the stair tower to the left side of the page, and the handicap ramp on the west. The rest of what you're seeing is interior alterations to some of the rooms for ADA upgrades and accessibility. The front reception area, one of the changes that I mentioned to the doors and windows is a replacement of the front door to the hotel lobby itself, underneath that portico, underneath that little covered patio. Next page. Next page. Those are the existing west and east elevations. The east elevation, you can see the stairway that we're maintaining on the backside of the west wing, we'll call it. We're altering it as part of an ADA upgrade. We have to provide an increased headroom for that door that you're seeing between grid lines C and E. So we're moving the staircase over slightly. Put your cursor to the door, the French door between C and E. That's the door that needs extra jam clearance on the side. We need it 6 feet 8. We need to maintain on the entire jam clearance. So we're slightly altering that. New light fixtures, taking off that portico. You'll see it on the left side, number 4, and you'll see where we're adding the new balcony on the next sheet. That where it says number 1 is an existing window, and we're removing it, but the opening is going to remain, and it's going to be open to, well, you'll see it on the elevation. Next page. These are the existing north and south elevations. You can see that the existing covered patio at the entryway at number 4 on the south elevation, you'll see that's coming off. It's kind of a 60s attempt at a Spanish. The existing architecture was upgraded in 2016, but it's still, because there haven't been very many alterations to the exterior, that was more of an aggressive project that now the new owner is undertaking. It still maintains somewhat of a kind of a plain Spanish style building. So we're hoping to fix that. So scroll down to the lower, the elevation. Yeah, that's the back. No real alterations there. Next page. So this is the proposed, the west elevation is our proposal for this submittal of the front elevation. However, a future component of this project, the one that requires the Milpa Street variance, is a conversion of that central lower window into a large glass door and access to a guest patio facing Milpa Street. But obviously we can't show that right now, but I wanted you to know it as part of the master plan. And above it is the Juliet balcony. And you can see the outlines of the existing windows, and they're dashed, and the new ones are not. You can see off to the right that where we're adding the small balcony for that guest suite. And number 16 on the left side of that page is a new door that accesses a conversion of a former manager's bedroom into a new room. So there's alterations to the front elevation to provide that. Lower elevation on that page, please. And then this is the east elevation. It's the side of the new stair tower. And, you know, we wanted to celebrate the tower somewhat, but not make it disproportionate to the scale of the architecture, which is why it has a higher plate. No openings on this side. You can see the window replaced on the upper level between grid lines A and C. That's now becoming a balcony there. There was a window there before. It was enclosed. Next page. This is the new stair tower as viewed from the pool deck. Better view of that balcony facing the driveway from the front side, and the new front door is below it, number 16. You can see the corbels on this, the additional corbels that we're adding to kind of add some dimensionality and character to the architecture, to the eaves. Lower elevation, did we already do that one? It's hard, yeah, that's the back. So you can see the back of the tower facing north from that view. I think that's all, that may be all we've submitted. And, you know, I told the client I'm kicking myself because we didn't submit a really beautiful rendering that we have of this courtyard and the stair tower. And Christina, I tried to reach you before we got into the meeting and I couldn't, but I was wondering if there's a possibility that we could screen share briefly. I could show you the rendering. It's on my desktop right now. Do you have that capability?
Unfortunately, Ms. Sherry, we can't do that. But if you have a printed, you can hold it out to the camera.
I don't, but I could turn on my other computer and then
we don't have the ability to do that for privacy reasons. Sorry about that.
You know, the owner is also on the call, Alex, and his team, and if they might have that, and they're on the call. So can we ask him if they have a printed version of that?
I promoted Mr. Kirkwood and Mr. Roman. If they're on the line and they have a printout, they may hold it up to their camera.
Are they muted?
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Kirkwood.
Let me try, let's see, here we go, share my webcam. Okay, we're gonna try this. Oh, it's reversed. Hold on, let me flip it.
No, it's okay. It works out.
Does it work okay?
Yes, just get it closer, Alex.
I get you, I get you.
It's
Zoom in on the
really
image.
hard to see.
Expand the image.
Apologize. But yeah, blow it up a little bit, Alex.
Yeah.
That shows the tower relative to the hotel, and it also shows the really good view of the small trellis that we're adding. It's a separation between the pool and the driveway, where the vehicular traffic is right on the other side of that wall. So I wanted you to see that too, and I apologize profusely for not including it in my submittal. And I think that, let me make sure I covered everything. Tower, downspout, new downspouts, it's minor. entry roof, guardrail extensions, pavers ramp, enclosure spa, outdoor fireplace. I said that. Pool lift. There's a new ADA pool lift. It's a standard. I don't have a spec for that in the submittal, but that's it. That's the end of my presentation.
Great, perfect timing. I think one question I had, is there a view or an elevation or a depiction of the trellis before we go to public comment?
That was what Alex
Other
was
than
showing.
the render.
That was what I was showing you in the rendering, and it inadvertently did not make it into the submittal. I apologize. It's a very simple wood,
It's
about
not
8
included on,
that one right there.
on any. Okay. Before we jump into more questions, we need to go to public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address the board about this project? You can follow the instructions on the screen.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I do see members of the public that have logged into the GoToWebinar. If you do wish to speak on this item, please click on the raise your hand icon. We will call on you. At this time, I don't see that anybody has raised their hand for public comment on this item. Mary, have we received any written public comment on this?
Thank you, Christina and Chair Moore. We did not receive any written public comment for this item. Thank you.
Okay, then we will close public comment and move on to questions. Vice Chair Six, you had a question.
Yes, do we have, first of all, do we have any photos of the existing and the existing? There we go. Okay, thank you. Do we have a photo down the side where, oh, and there's the, okay, these are good. So, and down the north side, it's completely screened. You want to back up one photo, please? So that the bottom photo is the adjacency with the north elevation where the ground floor HVAC units are, correct?
Yes.
So they're completely enclosed and fenced off from their neighbors?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if we could go to the floor plan. Oh, well, one more question. On with the I see a design of a glass enclosure around the pool. Will that just be repeated and matched? The design of the glass enclosure?
It won't match the existing glass enclosure, but there already is a glass enclosure around the pool. Yes, we're enlarging it to incorporate the spa area and the fireplace seating area. And it will not have, if you go back to the photos, and I didn't see the photos. Yeah, usually I present the photos initially, so this whole Zoom thing is screwing me up. I didn't get a chance to explain the photos. So see the existing enclosure has this wavy design on a portion of the glass. The glass top is not curved, but the frosted glass is looks wavy. We're not doing that. So we're removing the east portion, and it's the area in this photo that's to the east is the area where the new seating area is.
So the new glass design will incorporate the trellis within its structure and be clear like the return portion is here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If we could go to the floor plan. Or I'm sorry, the site plan. just out of curiosity, you see will you be moving back the front handicap parking space and with the response to the widening of your next proposal regarding the widening of Milpas? Or is
No,
that
the inaccessible parking space is new, and it was part of the 2016 remodel. And there's really no other way that we can do that parking space, and it has to remain. And if Milpas Street ever wants to be widened, then they'll have to deal with that on their own. But I should note that the adjacent hotel to the south is also in that setback.
Okay, thanks. And if there is not right in front between the columns to the entry where approximately where the 48 is, what is there? I didn't see on the elevation there wasn't any railing there, but yet you have your accessible route going up and around the corner of that east column. Is that why is that?
Well, the sidewalk, the ramp to the covered patio is very shallow from the sidewalk, and you enter below the balcony, and that's existing to remain. And the path of travel is accessible. The gray arrows from the ADA parking loading zone, that's existing to remain, and that is the current accessible path of travel. That will not change. And all we're doing now is providing the pedestrian access from the sidewalk, and that's the only way to put it, the only place to put it.
Okay. You're adding, what is there, what's the eave dimension of the overhangs from the building to the gutter? Are they significant?
I can't scale the drawings because they're not in front of me, but I think they're 24 to 30 inches deep.
Good. And are you going to be providing a flat soffit when you apply the decorative corbels?
We had not intended to apply a flat soffit, but right now we have not.
So those decorative corbels will slope up in with the slope of the roof on the underside of the eaves?
Yes.
Okay. When you replace the windows, what kind of material are you using versus the old material windows? What's window materiality of the new and old windows?
There's going to be a clad, and the existing is clad, and I'm pretty sure. And the front door, we had more of we had something different in mind there. We had more of a steel window, had a different, more decorative feel to it. If you want to go to the elevation, the south elevation can show that window is a little bit treated a little bit differently. We haven't decided 100% because this is just conceptual, but we had discussed using more of a decorative steel with true divided lights in that front door. That has not been decided 100%. But they'll be, the intent is for those windows and doors to be very high quality window. The intent of this whole project is to upgrade the existing building.
Okay, and then if we could go to the site plan. Are you going to be resurfacing? Are you going to be resurfacing the parking lot?
No. but everything, all of the other hardscape around the pool and access to all of the hotel rooms is being replaced.
Is there an opportunity to move parking lot space number 1 down deeper into the site and provide a landscape finger along those 10 spaces?
I don't believe so, no.
What is your constraint?
We only have access, we only have the ability to use those parking spaces. It's not on our property. The property ends at between spaces 3 and 4, but they have an easement to use those spaces. It's not on their property, but there is a landscape. There's already a significant landscaping along the south property line at the nose of all those parking spaces.
Okay, so you can't fiddle with those spaces that are off your property and only an easement, correct?
No, I wish we could. I wish we could add a parking space, to be honest.
Okay. That's my questions.
Okay, thank you. Who else has questions? Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
Yes, have you specified a light fixture yet?
No, it'll be more of a traditional wrought iron, full cutoff fixture.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Black, go ahead.
So am I to assume that all the existing landscaping is going to remain as is? Is that right?
No, part of our next phase of our project that we really wanted to be included in this phase, but the Milpas Street setback kind of shut us down temporarily. But the whole front of the building is going to be completely re-landscaped and upgraded. And then the landscaping, there's opportunity. We don't have planting specified, but there's opportunity to the south of the exterior fireplace. You can see around note, is that 57 and 15? There's a landscape area there that we're going to plant. And then, like I said, it's essentially repairing the surface of the existing hardscape around the pool to be permeable. And then, like I said before, the front of the building as part of the second phase is planned for a patio, actually, that we can't show you, but it's a guest patio so they can have wine and have breakfast out with the ocean view. And it'll have all new landscaping.
So separate application, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. That's all, thanks.
Okay. If nobody else has questions, obviously the major addition is the stair tower. Can you tell us a little bit more about the property adjacent to that and what is going on with that property? Are there windows being impacted? What's going on there? Photos show that.
There is residential use on the second level, and there are a couple of windows you can see. If you go to the photos, we might be able to see those. Not that one. But there are a couple of windows facing the pool area. There. That photo, if you zoom in on the, look on the top photo, there's a window that where I believe somebody from the ownership team was actually able to gain access to one of these units and somehow was able to look out and see if the tower was in the way of their view. And I was told that the tower does not affect their view of the ocean. I have not confirmed that myself.
Okay. So as far as, because that stair tower kind of wraps around that corner of your building there. So it sure seems like it's going to be in that area with those windows.
It is in that area, and you can see the tower from that window. I do not think it affects their view of the ocean.
Okay. Well, for next time, if we could get some better photography so we know what's going on in that little area, that'd be helpful. Okay, Mr. Watkins, you had questions?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Moore. I just had one. And maybe, Ms. Sherry, if you can't answer it, maybe staff can, but this conversation about the public works, I guess it's a modification through public works, right, for the Milpas setback and all the development that's going on right there. Do you have to still return back to design review board later on for comments before that hearing for the public works modification?
Right now, we're waiting on staff to indicate that they'll support the variance. And what we're hoping for is there are no plans, by the way, for Milpas Street to be widened.
Right.
This is a setback that it's, of my opinion, that Public Works will probably never take advantage of, especially because the hotel to the south is built in it. But that's not, that's not up to me to decide. But yes, if staff will support it, we'll be submitting it. And what we would hope is that it would catch up to this permit, and we could submit it as, alternatively to catch up to it, or I don't know. I haven't talked to Christina about how to do that yet, but we wanted it to be all at once, and we've been working on this project a year, and we still don't have an answer about whether or not it's supportable.
Okay. Can you clarify that, Ms. McGuire, about the process? And I guess based on what the applicant says, there's another submittal that's going to come through. I think probably because of other mods, we'll have to get feedback on it before it can get a final decision made on from the show, right, for that particular mod.
Thank you, board. Thank you, board member Watkins. There's a lot of things at play on this project, actually. As it is before you today, it does not require a public works approval for a variance at all. So that's off the table. If they do put that onto the table, that would have to come back again for your consideration at ABR. So if those two things get approval, they can sort of march through together to get their building permit at the same time. But there's a lot of ifs there. Currently, right now, the project in front of you actually will be seen at Planning Commission, not at Staff Hearing Officer level. And that's due to the fact that there's a change of use from a manager's unit to an additional hotel unit. And because of it's already going to Planning Commission, the modification for the alterations in the front setback would also go to the Planning Commission. If they divide out their project even more and just do the alterations to the front yard, those would be seen by the Staff Hearing Officer, and it would be a coastal exemption. So sort of more staff level determination. So there's a lot at play on this project, and it's sort of up to the applicant to present it how they will.
Okay, so that's helpful a little bit. So I guess what I'm getting at is based on the process and the fact that if they don't do anything but just the landscape in the front, they can go to a show. If they don't, they have to go through PC, and there's going to be two going simultaneously. And they won't be able to eventually go down the line and even submit to building if this second one that is not being looked at today, but is still being discussed a little bit. If that doesn't get its approval from PC at that time, my understanding is they won't even be able to go forward into building at that point, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
correct.
So based on that and based on how the process runs sometimes, or I should step back, are we allowed to offer any comments informally, not because they won't be binding in the motion. But can the board at least offer comments right now on what the applicant has proposed, at least to give an understanding of what the temperature is on those proposals? It's only going to be based on the plans that are in front of us right now, but there's some things like, for instance, the path of travel that they're proposing, it's out of the property and inside our scope, but then it runs right across the setback. So at that point, that's a comment we're going to offer to them, right? That's going to be giving them feedback for the other one. At what point can we offer comments that are going to still be informal but helpful to the applicants without being, wasting our time or going to be struck down later on?
Thank you, Board Member Watkins. Those are good questions. I think at this point, you really should just focus on the application in front of you. If you do have those informal comments about them, I think that that's useful to the applicant for their consideration later down the line, and for the other members of the applicant team that are present to hear those comments that you would support those items, but I don't think it's appropriate to put an emotion for this.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. That was it. That's my only question.
Can I add one thing to answer David's question too? Is that we don't believe that the ADA path of travel to the sidewalk is going to be subject to the Milpa Street variance, just FYI. And that's why we've kept it in the submittal, David.
Okay, thanks. Just clarifying. Okay, thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Great. Any other questions from board members? We're moving to comments. No? Okay, let's go to comments. Who would like to start? Mr. Whalen, go ahead.
Sure, and that's because one of my comments is kind of a question. I'm a bit confused by all the right-of-way for Milpas expansion, but it does occur to me, Ms. Sherry, that there are two rather large giant bird of paradise that are going to be removed for those two access ways, one to the entry and one to the room. Is that correct?
The bird of paradise on the south side of the building, and you can see the outline of it by note 46. There is no way to keep that bird of paradise and provide handicap or accessible pathway from the sidewalk to the public entryway, because it can't go through the driveway. Yeah, so that, but because that, we have other solutions to that, and we love that bird of paradise, and we are going to be incorporating a lot of beautiful landscape in the future.
So 46 and 52. My comment would be that those specimens be boxed and retained and relocated on the site. My second comment is the handicap rail at 52. I would recommend that that be matched other railings at the second floor, your new balcony, and the new railings. As indicated on the plan, it just looks like a standard pipe rail.
I'm not.
Okay, hold on. This is not a back and forth. Sorry, Ms. Sherry.
It's
I
okay.
actually need you to turn your camera off so we can get board members on the screen here. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Whalen, any other comments?
No, that's it. Just the two, that the bird of paradise be boxed and relocated, and the railing at entry match the other railings on the second floor. Thank you.
Okay. Who else has comments? Mr. Watkins, was that a hand up?
Yeah. Sorry, thank you. I think the project is fine. I think it's really nicely the details that you guys are proposing to add on to the project, I think would qualify as character enhancing features, which I think is always appreciated. And it's done in a way that is very, I think, focused and very well thought out. It's, it's simple, and it doesn't need to be anything more than that because of what's already there. So I think it's very appropriate. It definitely maintains the overall structure and character of the building that's there. The tower in itself, the massing and the scale, I think, are appropriate, but there are still some questions, as Chair Moore pointed out, that need to be, I think, fleshed out more, some photos, just to get some good photos of even standing on that second level corner, maybe from the hotel and looking back towards the adjacent residence to see kind of what that relationship is. But the scale itself and the detailing and what it is, it's fine. And I mean, in reality, I mean, it's at the back of the project. So for me, that's a total consent thing, but it is what it is. We're here now. The trellis, it'd be nice for the next round to have some elevations and some, more detail about what that would look like. But from that little rendering, I appreciate, at least from what the design intent is, that it's going to filter between the vehicular area and the pool. I think that's really nicely thought out. And that is a piece as you're driving back the driveway and you're looking down there, walking down Milpas, you're going to see that element. So I think that's also nice too, because it offers something for the pedestrians. Everything else though, I think is fine. The clad material with the doors and windows being matched, totally fine and appropriate. The corbels are great. So yeah, the glass partitions too, I think that's also super appropriate. I appreciate that the applicant's willing to scratch the wavy frosted funkiness that's there and just kind of maintain a clean, paneling system that's pulled out. I think that's totally fine from my point of view. Yeah, so I don't have any issues other than just kind of clarifying what's at that corner and what the impact will be on the neighbors, if anything. So I'd ask that in the next round too, that the applicant at least include some building footprints of the adjacent, just to kind of give a relationship of what's happening from other sites. And then I'll just end, last thing is informally, I think that setback issue and Milpas is, it is what it is, but I'll reserve. It's just, I think it just makes the process a little bit harder for everyone. But for the intentions that you guys have, informally speaking, I think what you guys have talked about and discussed would be nice features. So I look forward to that, and I'll, leave it at that. But it's appreciated. I'm sure it'll look nice. So for your guys' understanding, I think that's something that'd be encouraged and supported for that area. And I'll stop there.
Okay, does anyone have anything different or additional to add to that? Vice Chair Six?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I echo those ideas. I like the project. I think that it looks like Ms. Sherry, that the soffits are already flat, and the window headers are pretty close to the level of the soffits, so it'll be good to study just how those outriggers, those tail ends, how flat or where they're positioned, so it doesn't look like they're riding directly and bearing on the windows. I think it'd be a nice opportunity. We're right here and now, instead of having the two sides of the new handicap ramp going out to the street, maybe you skew and much more inviting to have a very wide base of the ramp and have it triangular, so it's much more inviting. I think when given the dimensions of the existing eaves, I think and the problems with and the relationship of the stair tower to the back property line, I think that should be detailed entirely different, maybe just a simple molding rather than what you're repeating with some very short tail ends. So I think that has to be in a complete, that should be, or more appropriate to be a entirely different expression at the eave. And just very minor, I think that if we go to the second floor, that's, yeah, so right where the new stair tower is, and that gray area, which it's the roof as the stair tower goes, as the stair goes down to the second floor, you have your number 303 railing hopping up that various levels of, I guess it's full plaster roof on there. I think that should be coordinated a little bit more. And I think that from the photos, it would be an improvement if you found better, more obscure security cameras. Those are, but other than that, I'm fully supportive of the project.
Thanks, Richard.
Ms. Anderson? Had some comments?
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. I think it's fine. I think that we just need to start seeing some materials for the next round, and colors for those materials. So.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add?
Leon,
Oh, Mr. Olson, yes?
I think it's a good project and well presented. I think it's ready to move on to the next step. That's all.
All right. I have nothing more to add other than the comments regarding a little bit more information about the tower, what is going on with the neighboring building. So, who would like to make a motion? Mr. Watkins, go ahead.
And try. Okay. So this is conceptual right now, so we're just going to keep it, I guess, as maybe I could ask the applicant real quick. Would they want a 2-week continuance or indefinite?
I think it's up to staff to tell me if by the time in 2 weeks I'm going to be, I think because it requires the mod, David, it's definitely indefinite. And the mod is for, and you might want to mention this in your motion, and I forgot to tell you the Juliet balcony and the balcony over the entryway and the alterations to the west elevation require the zoning mod. So favorable comments for those items would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you. So the motion would be for a indefinite continuance of this project with the following comments. The board finds the quality and design of the project to be compatible and well thought out. The proposed exterior alterations, most notably the Juliet balcony, the alterations along the west, the corbels being proposed, can all be considered character enhancing features and appropriate for the design. The alterations to the enclosure around the pool are acceptable as proposed for the material and design, but additional details will be requested for final approval. The clad doors and windows being proposed, other than the Juliet balcony, are acceptable as they are consistent with the existing glazing in the units. The proposed stair tower is generally acceptable in terms of massing and scale. However, the board seeks further clarification as to the impact on the adjacent residential units' views and proximity to those units. The board asked for footprints of adjacent structures to be added to the site plan, as well as additional photos from the second level of the hotel, and if possible, the adjacent units, the residential units that would be impacted by the addition of the stair tower.
Second.
And I think I will leave it at, I'm trying to think I covered everything. Yeah, I think that hopefully that covered the zoning mods too. I'll leave it at that.
Seconded by Mr. Olson. Any discussion? There was some notes earlier about the existing birds of paradise and
Oh,
requests
right.
to save and potentially relocate those. Or...
The issue with that, if I may, Chair Moore, is because it's in the frontage and that is supposed to be coming under a different scope again with us. So I would imagine those comments are going to have to be applied then. Because it's not a part of the scope in front of us.
I mean, they're removing one of the birds of paradise for the ADA access. So
Would the second or the motion be okay with me adding comments favorable to maintaining the bird of paradise if possible, or providing a new one of equal size if that's not
Yes.
feasible? Okay. So do that. I'll also add the proposed trellis along between the vehicular pathway and the pool enclosure also appears to be consistent with the proposed vernacular, but additional elevations and details would be requested for clarity. And light fixture cut sheets too, please.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, can we read that back?
Yes. So the motion is to continue indefinitely with the following comments. Number one, the board finds the quality and design of the project compatible and well thought out. The proposed exterior alterations, such as the Juliet balcony, corbels, and alterations on the west can be considered character enhancing features and appropriate for the design. Number two, the alterations to the pool enclosure are acceptable in terms of material and design, but additional details are needed for final approval. Number three, the clad doors and windows proposed on the Juliet balcony are appropriate and consistent with the existing glazing on the units. Number four, the proposed stair tower is appropriate in terms of scale, but the board seeks clarification on the impact on adjacent units and the proximity to units. Number five, provide footprints of adjacent structures to be added to the site plan and additional photos from the second level of the hotel. And if possible, the residential units impacted by the addition of the stair tower. Number six, maintain the birds of paradise or provide a new one of the same size if maintaining them is not possible. And lastly, number seven, the proposed trellis between the vehicular pathway and pool enclosure appears to be consistent with the proposed vernacular, but the applicant shall provide additional detailing and show light fixtures.
May I add one more comment that I realized a board member brought up in there, and we left it out, I think. Would the second or the motion be okay with the comment of the proposed pedestrian handrail at the west elevation? Sorry, I would say the frontage. I think I have it backwards. The proposed pedestrian walkway handrail shall match the detailing of the guardrail at the second level.
So before I do, have we addressed, excuse me, the applicant's request for dealing with the mods?
We can't. Yeah, it's pretty much, it is just as proposed right now. We can't give any comments on the future stuff.
No, he's talking about the
It's
zoning mod.
specific. Sorry, I'm sorry. Can the applicant needs to mute themselves? Not a back and forth time. The applicant was asking for positive comments on the modifications for the new balcony and the doors, windows, etc.
I think we covered those.
Very good. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then let's take our vote.
All right, so we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
You have to repeat that, Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 3. Before we jump into item number 3 and read the description, I was hoping staff could tell us a little bit more about why we're reviewing this and what, see, it says courtesy review. So tell us a little bit more, what are we focusing on? Why are we reviewing this?
Thank you, Chair Moore. This item is actually located in the city limits. However, the property is owned by Caltrans, and so their purview for these type of projects is actually not your purview. They've come as a courtesy to ask for your comments and considerations for this project. The Caltrans applicant team has provided a PowerPoint presentation for comments from you.
Thank you. All right, so this is item number 3, Primavera and La Colina Street Bridges Courtesy Review. This project is located on State Route 154, the overcrossings at Primavera Road and La Colina Road bridges in the city of Santa Barbara. The proposed project would reconstruct the existing failing abutments and replace outdated bridge rails. The project is needed as Caltrans has identified non-standard bridge rails and failing abutments at both structures based upon recommendations from Caltrans experts. Rehabilitation of Primavera Road Bridge and La Colina Road Bridge is required. In an effort to fulfill the Caltrans Complete Streets Directive, the project also proposes to construct ADA compliant foldouts and a crosswalk at the existing bike and pedestrian path which crosses La Colina Road. Again, this is a courtesy review. No appealable decision is required. Okay, we have our applicant. Right. Is there an applicant or is this simply a, oh, there we go. If you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself. We have a timer of 15 minutes for your presentation. If you could keep it to that or less, we would appreciate it.
Yes, hello. My name is Lucas Marshalik, and I'm an environmental planner out of the Caltrans District 5 office in San Luis Obispo. First off, I'd like to thank city planning staff for getting us on this agenda tonight, and also thank you, Chair Moore, and the board members for your time this evening. The Primavera and La Colina Bridges Rehabilitation Project will be presented tonight. I'm just going to do a quick intro. Following that, Aaron Wolfram, Senior Designer, and or David Beard, Design Manager, will discuss the need of the project. And then last and most importantly, Christopher Manning, Caltrans Landscape Architect, will describe the project's aesthetic features. So you asked, how did we get here today for this courtesy review? Well, this project is fully within Caltrans right-of-way. It's outside the coastal zone, and it has also been determined categorically exempt under CEQA. As of today, we are at 95% design in the project schedule. For this effort, that is a little late and will give us limited flexibility as you ask questions and provide comments. However, early on, we made a commitment
before you jump into the explanation. So our board's purposes is really to review the aesthetics of projects. So what does it look like? Mass bulk scale, landscape, that's really our scope. So the why of what you're doing isn't as important to us. So I would really like you to focus on the aesthetics, landscape design, that type of material.
Yes, thank you for that comment, Chair Moore. That's our intent. We're going to a brief project description followed by aesthetic features is the point of our presentation here. So we made a commitment to share our features, these design features, with the community, and that leads us here tonight. So from here, I'll let design give a quick project description, and then landscape architecture will provide aesthetic features. Next slide, please. Aaron, I believe you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Aaron Wolfram, the project engineer. Really quickly, the project is necessary because the structure the structure abutments are failing due to alkali silica reactivity. It's causing cracking in the abutments of the bridge, and the project is proposed to upgrade those that foundation to ensure that the bridge will last for the lifespan of the bridge. And we're also planning on upgrading the bridge rails to meet the current crash standards. And if you wanted to, as an additional part for complete streets in this project, it was identified that the bike path along 154 that travels from State Street down to down towards Damon Garcia High School doesn't have ADA accessible pathway at the La Colina undercrossing. So as a part of this project, we added constructing bulb outs and ramps to that undercrossing. And our design team worked closely with City Santa Barbara staff to come up with a design that was acceptable for the city and for Caltrans as well. We also plan on, as part of the upgrade to the bridge rails, we will widen the bridge structure enough to accommodate those rails. And some of the aesthetic changes to the bridge will basically require a larger abutment to be constructed in front of and outside of the existing bridge abutments. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is showing an overview of our project site. The project is, the original project was only to do the abutments at Primavera and La Colina. And we also added the bulb outs for the bike path for pedestrian access along La Colina. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is kind of an overview of street view or a plane view, bird's eye view of the project site. It obviously has some impacts with the local neighborhood. And both bridges are just a simple overcrossings. There's no connections to the state highway system. And I'll hand it back over to Lucas to talk about the rest of the features.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Christopher Manning is on the call, but thinks he can't be unmuted. Is it possible to unmute Christopher Manning?
Okay, there I am. Hello, everyone.
Perfect.
My name's Chris. I'm landscape architect for this project, and I'll be presenting the aesthetic features associated with this project. This is a view from La Colina Road looking west. I might call your attention to the existing bridge rail that will be replaced, and the exclusionary fencing, the chain link fencing that runs along the back of sidewalk will be realigned, and you'll see that later. Next slide, please. This is the existing bridge slope protection that will be disturbed in the process of constructing the new abutment, or what we're calling the catcher beam. And we felt that this presents an opportunity to replace the slope protection with a more visually appealing and somewhat graffiti resistant surface. Next slide. Here is the existing bridge, the existing view of Primavera Bridge looking east. Here again, you see the existing inclusionary fencing, chain link fencing aligned at the back of sidewalk. Next slide. And this is a photo simulation of the Primavera Bridge. And I'll note that the La Colina Bridge will virtually include identical design features. They're virtually the same. So for example, there's small arched texture on the exterior, on the outside of the bridge railing that you'll see. We decided to add large arched motif form line texture on the new abutment or catcher beam face that you see under the bridge and on the sides of the bridge abutment. We're also suggesting the rock blanket slope protection under the bridge, which is depicted here graphically and conceptually. And the exclusionary fencing you'll see is now not really prominent as in some subsequent plan views. You'll see how it's aligned horizontally to tie into the sides of the bridge rather than to go along the back of the sidewalk. Next slide, please. So just in review of all the things we're doing that have aesthetic bearing, there's a texture on the outside of the bridge rail that's consistent with other bridges in the area. We have the fractured rib form liner texture that we feel adds interest in deferred graffiti. The slope protection, which is a rock blanket texture that will defer graffiti and add visual interest as well. And the exclusionary fencing will be realigned, as I mentioned. And we're adding quite a bit of new drought tolerant planting that will be on all sides of the bridge abutments. Next. This is an example of the outside the bridge rail texture that's predominant in the area in the region. However, we will not have fencing on the fence, as Highway 154 in this segment doesn't allow bikes or peds. Next. Here's an example of the form liner texture that we're proposing for the large arched motif on the sides of the catcher beam, a fractured fin texture. Next. Here's a photo of the rock blanket caving that will serve as the slope protection under the bridge, grouted with mortar. And by the way, this material treatment is currently being implemented in various applications on the HOV widening project occurring between Santa Barbara and Carpinteria. So I think it will tie into sort of a regional material or treatment. And the next slide. So this plan illustrates the new layout of the exclusionary chain link fencing at La Colina, and that's depicted in the heavy red lines. Those lines represent the new layout of the fencing. And the green shading represents all the areas of new planting and mulch. As a component of our Complete Streets program, we're adding a mid-block crossing that aligns with the existing bike and pedestrian path that's running parallel to the 154, and it crosses La Colina Road right now without any traffic control. And so as an element of Complete Streets, we added this late into the project to make for a safer, user-friendly use of the bike path there. Currently, there's no ramps or crosswalks right there as that path crosses La Colina Road. Next. So here's an enlargement of what we're proposing, aerial photo with the line work overlaid. Our engineers on the team have worked with the City Public Works Department to develop the details of the crossing, which will allow water to flow through over the existing concrete gutter. The existing curbs and gutters will remain in place. And we had considered LID or low impact development planters. However, it was deemed just not to be feasible given various hydrological considerations and problems. So the water will just flow through the gutter as it is now, and the bulb out or curb extension will be essentially a curved island, taking up a parking space there. The crossing will also include small planters with very small planters, just a few low succulents, and rock blanket paving that will tie into the slope paving at the bridge, or slope protection at the bridge. There'll also be a crosswalk striping as well. The next slide. And here's a plan view of Primavera Bridge. Again, the red lines representing the new horizontal layout of the exclusionary chain link fencing, and the green shading representing all the areas of new planting. We have about 24 oak trees, 15-gallon oak trees, about 250 shrubs, primarily manzanitas and Baccharis pigeon point, and a few accent pink melaleuca shrubs. You know, a mixture of drought tolerant or native and drought tolerant Mediterranean plants that we think will do well there. We're tying into an existing irrigation system that is currently not being utilized, but will water these plants until they're established. So at this point, welcome any questions you might have.
Okay, if that concludes your presentation, we can move on to public comment. If there's any member of the public that would like to address the board regarding this project, you can follow the instructions on the screen.
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, I don't see anybody who has logged into the GoTo webinar for public comment on this item. Mary, have we received any written public comment?
Thank you, Chair Moore and Christina. We did not receive any written public comment for this item.
Okay, then we can close public comment and move on to questions. And I would just ask the board to be concise with your questions and eventual comments, as our scope of review in this project is limited. So, does anyone have questions? No questions?
Yes.
Okay, great. Oh, yes, I see Mr. Black, you have a question?
Simple question. The exclusionary fencing, is that it's going to be chain link as well? Is it? And is it just is it just going to be galvanized chain link, or could it be, you know, coated black chain link?
It's a galvanized chain link fence. And I should note too that with the current standards, we're required to increase the height. It's currently a 4-foot height at the back of the sidewalk, and it will be a 6-foot height, which is incidentally is, I believe, the height of the fencing as it runs along the base of the slope between the roadway slope and the path. So it will be, you know, more consistent throughout.
Okay. That's the only question I had. Thanks.
Okay, who else had a question? Mr. Whalen?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. Could you put up the image, Mr. Bolton, of the La Colina crossing? My question is specifically regarding the existing fencing at the bulb out crossing there. You can see it. Does that fencing remain? It's sort of a little walk around.
Yes, like a chicane, or if I'm saying it correctly. Yes,
Chicane, right.
yeah, and I think in a way that's good, because if there's bikes riding along, they'll be forced to slow their speed dramatically before they enter the crosswalk, allowing oncoming vehicles to identify perhaps a bike attempting to cross.
Yes, I understand the purpose of them. My comment is they're quite worn, and it would say work against the character of the improvements. But I'm getting into a comment. That's my only question. Thank you, Chair Moore.
Okay, and Vice Chair Six, was that you?
Yes, Chair Moore, thank you. First, would open voids in the railings meet the crash standards?
This is Aaron. We hadn't really looked at open railing, mainly because we were going with the same aesthetic as 101 crossing and some of the other bridges in the area. And that also that aesthetic treatment allows us to use a standard bridge railing, which is makes it simpler for the development of plans. And
okay, especially on some of the slides, I noticed that there were mature trees, especially slide number 1, a mature oak. Are you taking the old trees out, mature trees out?
No, there's no oak trees being removed.
Okay.
that's correct. There's no tree removal, but there is a minor amount of, we will have to do some trimming to access the site for the foundation work.
Okay, so would you go to, last question quickly, go to your one image of one, your photo images of one of the designs. Yeah, now I don't understand where the exclusionary fencing will be. It will be in line with the vertical part of the abutment, way up there. I don't see the exclusionary fence in this image.
It would be just to the left of the of that large square, kind of where the abutment turns. There's like a shadow for the fence, and then it goes back from there.
So it's way up on the top of the bank.
That's correct.
Okay, great. That's my question.
Okay, anyone else? No? Okay, let's go to comments. If we could have the applicants, their screens off and mute themselves, we'd appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Whalen, go ahead. Mr. Whalen, you're
Yes, now I'm unmuted. Thank you, Chair Moore. I think it's important for the project to consider that these two bridges are the primary way in and out of the neighborhood to the west, which is a couple hundred houses and apartment buildings. And thus these are gateways to their communities, and they should strive to be of a high quality design. And I think you've achieved that on the architecture. I would like to suggest that the landscape go a bit further and include some perhaps flowering plants such as Fremontodendron and Rhamnia that would provide some seasonal color and still qualify as native plantings. And in the, what are they called? Both the bulb out and what do you call it? The rock blanket. I think these could be done more artfully using some more local sandstone boulders, perhaps of varying sizes, something that would really befit them as portals and gateways to this community. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Okay. Who's next?
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Hello?
Vice Chair Sick.
Yes. First, I think I'd like to see open voids in the railings. And number two, I think the one mid-span pilaster, if you will, is unfortunate. There should at least be these pilasters at third points, if not quarter points. Those are my comments.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Watkins?
Thanks, Chair Moore. I just want to state I follow what Board Member Whelan spoke about. I think I agree with those comments. So just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have one more comment. I want to work on my lighting of my setup so I can look as dramatic as Mr. Marsalic.
Yes, it was very dramatic. Mr. Whalen?
Just to extend my comment about
I have an explanation for that.
sandstone boulders, both in those bulb out planters too. I think that would be much more attractive, especially if they're of a certain size and dimension.
Okay.
Can I respond to you, Chair, Board Member 6? I have to.
Yes.
I have to be able to. I have to escape my four children in the house, but I also have to hide the mess that is my garage. So I'm stuck here. I'm stuck in this predicament here. I'm usually a pretty happy person.
Got it. Thank you for the levity.
Yes. All right, so this is a question for staff, no motion. These are just comments, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair Moore. This just the applicant's looking for comments. We don't need a motion on this item.
Excellent. Okay, but if that is all of our comments.
I think, Chairman Moore, we want to appreciate, have appreciation for them bringing this to us. I think it's important and I am grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely, totally in agreement. Wish we could have seen it a little sooner in the process to have more of an impact. But okay, with that being our third and final item, I can close our meeting for the 25th. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.